Steve Sundstrom and I talk about the Back to the Future franchise and more on this edition of Retro Serial. Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. I'm EMC. I'm glad you could be joining us for this episode of Retro Serial. Back with us on the program is Steve Sundstrom for a second time. Yes, and this time we talk about the Back to the Future franchise and a little bit more with time travel movies and soundtracks from time travel movies and all kinds of different stuff. We just can't keep focused on one thing. Whenever he's on the show, it's just a blast. We just go everywhere with our conversation. But we really do kind of narrow it down for the most part and talk about Back to the Future. Before we get to that interview though, before we get to that discussion, please, it would be an honor to me if you would consider subscribing to this channel. It would be awesome. And also hit the like button. That helps other people know about this channel as well. And hit the bell notification if you want to know when these come out. Also, what can you do? Share it on your favorite social media. And if you are listening to this in podcast form, go ahead and leave me an honest review. Share it on your favorite social media. Leave me a star review or give me a rating. That helps a lot. And as always, if you like what we're doing here on this program, you're going to like what we're doing on the YouTube program. And I'll leave a link in the description box to my YouTube page because there are just some things about Growing Up Generation X that I talk about that are more for YouTube rather than podcast. But you know, however you're listening to this, it doesn't matter to me. I'm just glad you're listening. But I just don't want you to miss out on some of the great content and some of the great things that I talk about Growing Up Generation X, and some of it is a little bit more exclusive to YouTube. So head on over there, and as always, I will leave a link in the description box below to the Buy Me a Coffee page where you can donate or part with some of your hard-earned cash to help me grow this podcasting and YouTube mogul empire and make all of my wildest dreams come true. You can be a part of that by just clicking that link below. But that all said, whatever you're doing, I'm just glad you're here and glad you're listening. With that, let's go to the interview. I am on a Zoom call with Steven Sundstrom. How you doing, Steven?
I'm doing great. How you doing, Ian?
I'm doing good. You run an awesome YouTube channel where you talk about a lot of nostalgic type things from the 50s, 60s. You like a lot of MASH stuff, don't you?
I do like a lot of MASH stuff. You know, of course, MASH was in the 70s, finished up in the early 80s.
Yeah.
So, you know, and I was born in 71, so I watched a lot of reruns. But I also watched it as it initially aired. I remember watching the final Goodbye, Farewell, and Amen, which was a really classic show. And so yeah, I love MASH, but I love there's just so many shows from 70s, 80s, 90s that I really enjoy. I love TV, I love movies, music.
Yes, for sure. The last conversation we had, we talked about everything under the sun. It was great.
It was a lot of fun.
I mean, we're the type of people we could just sit around and we could talk for hours about music and television and movies. And today is going to be no exception. Before we jump into the project for today, talking about Back to the Future, just let everybody know a little bit about your channel.
Oh, yeah. Thanks. I appreciate that. So my channel's just under my name, Stephen Sundstrom. It's StephenSundstrom, Stephen Sundstrom. And it's just a channel where I talk about pop culture from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Whatever I'm feeling like talking about, whether it's a movie or a record album that I liked growing up or TV shows. I just get in and talk a little bit about a specific show or a movie, and most of my videos are about between 3 and 5 minutes in length, so they're pretty quick watches. As Ian mentioned there, I've done the last few have been on some MASH episodes, or not MASH episodes, but characters from MASH.
Right.
But I'm all over the place, just anything pop culture.
Anything you like that's pop culture, you're ready and willing to talk about.
That's right. Absolutely.
And that's why I have you on the program today, because I'm going to be talking about a movie or a movie franchise. We talk about all three movies as much as we possibly can shove into an 40 minutes to an hour ish. That's what I love about podcasting. Yeah, there's no time limit. It's not like the next show's coming on in a half an hour. We've got to get it
That's
all in
right.
or cut it down. We can talk as long as we want. But I think the only thing that stops us is our lives that we have to get back to. But today we are going to be talking about a film series that you and I both love, and that is Back to the Future. As you can see behind me, I've got my two Back to the Future board games, along with the Back to the Future VHS. I'm not sure, but I actually think that might be an original VHS from 1985. I'm not sure, though, about that. But interesting. My mom found it, and she sent it to me. So for a backdrop. But we're going to talk about Back to the Future, how it changed our lives personally, some of the factoids about the film, and also how it changed our culture as well. So, us, the films, and life in general. So I'm going to let you start it out. I'm going to ask you this question. How old were you when Back to the Future came out, thinking that it came out in 1985?
So I was 14 when Back to the Future came out.
Okay, all right. And did you see it in the theater?
Here's the funny story about seeing Back to the Future. I did see it in the theater. The first time I went to see it, it was a summer. I think it was a summer day, a summer evening. Um, but my friends and I walked to a theater in Bountiful, kind of where we live, the city that we live by, and we were in the theater right as that opening sequence starts with all the clocks in Doc Brown's workshop.
Yes.
And there was this freak storm that hit, and all the power went out. So we've paid our money. We're sitting there. We're super psyched, and the power goes out, and we're in this dark theater. So we get up and head out, and they refund our money, and we walk home in a rainstorm.
Oh no, oh no.
But we made a point to go see it. I think literally the very next day.
Yeah, yeah. And then when you saw it originally, were you like blown away? Were you impressed? Were you impressioned by it at all?
Wow, Back to the Future blew me away. It was amazing. It was well, it had an awesome soundtrack.
Yeah, for sure.
It had, I was going to say Alex Keaton, Michael J. Fox, who was so popular at the time because of his association with the TV show not Facts of Life, but
Family Ties.
Family Ties. Yeah, he was so popular, and then here he was. It's Alex Keaton in a science fiction movie.
Right, right.
Yeah, and awesome. And so yeah, I loved the show, and the science fiction. I'm a science fiction nerd, so the science fiction element, the action, the comedy, it was great. How about you? What were your thoughts initially?
Yeah, it's a good question. I was 10 or 11 when it came out, in 1985, somewhere around 10 or 11. And I loved it too. But I was one of those weird kids that I was so impressionable. Like if I saw something on TV, I wanted to be that. The next day I
Right.
was all trying to be that. And some of those things stuck more than others. It's just like if I was watching Solid Gold, I'd want to be a Solid Gold dancer the next day or something. But that's one of those things that just kind of burnt up, didn't really last too long. But with Back to the Future, it really impacted me big time. I think it impacted the culture too. One of the things we were talking about as we were preparing for the show was the advent of the fat skateboard. Did you get one of those?
I did. Yeah, it was right after that show that my friends and I all were out buying those kind of shorter and fatter skateboards.
Yeah, yeah. And before that, it was the thinner skateboards. I think skateboarding kind of came into its own during that time. Before that, there was skateboarding was a big culture. It was a big deal, but it was really kind of trying to recreate um, recreate what you did on a surfboard, as I recall. They were trying to recreate in on land what you did on a surfboard.
Yeah.
And I think in Back to the Future now, it's probably before that, but it really pushed it in the mainstream. I just saw people riding skateboards everywhere and doing things for skateboards, not just trying to imitate what you did on a surfboard.
Yeah, watching Michael J. Fox on the skateboard in that TV show, early in the movie when he's grabbing onto vehicles as they're driving around, and he does that all throughout the movie. Just made it cool. Everybody wanted to do it.
Yeah. And did you try any of those tricks as a kid?
I wasn't as good as he was. I'm not sure as that was actually him doing all of those scenes versus maybe a stunt performer.
Right.
But I tried my fair share. We used to have kids on bikes pulling each other around on the skateboards, trying to replicate the car pulling around the skateboard guy.
Yeah.
Get some pretty good speed that way, and then try to maybe go over a jump or try to do some sort of flip with the board. But no, I was never very good. How about you?
I got into a serious accident on the skateboard, and it actually caused me to be timid after that. I mean, I got into a real serious accident. We're talking down a huge hill, skateboard got the wobbles, tumbled head over heels a few times, road rash all up my stomach, up my leg. And from that time on, I really just couldn't get past the fear. Unfortunately, I wish I would have.
That's the problem with those skateboards is the wheels are so small. If you hit a rock, it just kind of stops it in its place.
Yeah. Yeah. There were some serious hills where I was from and at the time. And I just went down one time, and I loved skating fast. I mean, that was kind of my thing. A lot of people were doing tricks, but I was into speed skating. I mean, I don't know if I coined the term, probably not, but I mean, I was really into like getting there quickly. And people were impressed. Actually, I had some people who passed me on the road to school, and then when I got to school, they're like, "We just passed you, when we were driving. It's pretty cool, that you got here so quick." It was one kid mentioned that to me. He was impressed. But so I went down this hill one time, and it was a super steep hill, and I should have crashed on my own, but my skateboard started getting the wobbles. And from that time on, I just always had a little bit of fear. It was a pretty bad wreck. I didn't break anything, but I was scraped to Hades.
Yeah, that's no fun. Did they have to use the wire brush on you?
No, I didn't. Wasn't hospital time. It wasn't any of that. Nothing was too broken. I have to tell you this story. I did try a few times before that. After that, my skateboarding habits changed. But before that, I did try to grab cars a couple times. It doesn't work. I mean, at least I didn't make it work. The car, even going slow, is going too fast, and it really kind of pulls you off your skateboard. There's no way your legs kind of keep up with the top momentum
Right.
of grabbing a car. I tried it a couple times though, and
yeah. Why wouldn't you? It worked in Back to the Future.
It's yeah, for sure. Did you have any friends who tried crazy stuff on skateboards?
No, not really. We were all just kind of cruising around the neighborhood on our skateboards and trying to get good at them. I had a few that got pretty good, but they never really got into tricks, like really, top level. So we were all hacks.
Yeah, yeah. So what did you think about the time travel in Back to the Future and looking at all three movies? What do you think about that? I mean, the first movie explores some, the second movie really kind of explores time travel paradoxes.
Right.
What did you think when you were watching, or what do you think about it now? I don't care.
Yeah, well, I like time travel movies, and there's a bunch of time travel movies out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the first movie actually is better than Back to the Future 2, but you're right. Back to the Future 2 does explore more of the paradox between, you've changed the future and look what happened.
Yeah, right.
Well, I guess the first one sort of does that with the picture that he's holding, that if he doesn't fix things, his brothers, they're all disappearing from that picture.
Yeah.
But it's even more amplified in the second movie. I really liked it. It made you question a few times, like, how would that work? Is that really is that feasible? The way that they're assuming time travel was actually possible,
Yeah.
is the
Yeah.
way they've played it out the way it would work.
Right, right. It is kind of interesting. I remember having vicious arguments with some friends of mine over. It's kind of funny because it's like when you're a kid, it's not like you argue actually. For us, it wasn't like I was arguing actually over real things. We were arguing over imaginary things, like
Right.
in their universe. And as we were watching Back to the Future for the 20th millionth time, I was saying, no, this is the first time he's doing this. And they were trying to say that it's almost like an infinite loop. They were trying to say that in the first scene where Doc gets shot, that there's another Marty in that first
Watching.
scene up on the hill
That's what I wonder too.
coming down. And I was like, no, there's got to be a first time. There can't be an infinite loop,
But
otherwise we
it feels
wouldn't.
like at the end of the movie when he comes back and he runs over there and sees it, that would create an infinite loop because then he watches himself go back in time again.
Yeah, but do you not think that there's a first time that happened, or?
There has to have been a first time, right?
Yeah, yeah. That's what I
But
was.
then from that point forward, is there an infinite loop of that?
Yeah, yeah. That is a tough one. That is a tough one of an infinite loop. Well, you've shared in the past, at least your brother has, that you kind of grew up in. I think you've shared too that you kind of grew up in a more strict home as far as what you could watch on TV.
Oh yeah, well, it was probably more strict when my brother was younger than when I was younger. For those people that have had kids, I think the parents start out with all the best of intentions, but they just get worn down by the younger kids. So, where I'm 7 years younger than my brother,
Yeah,
and I was the third child, I think there was some leniency, a little bit more lax rules.
right.
But really, the rules I remember, my dad was a religious guy and had a rule about Sunday being a day of, just a day of rest per se. And
Hmm.
so there were these rules that were really tough for kids. We couldn't watch TV on Sundays
Yeah,
unless
yeah.
it was like the Wonderful World of Disney. We could watch that, or the Ten Commandments. If the Ten Commandments with Charlton Heston was on, that was watchable. So there was
Right.
always an exception to the rule. But in general, no TV on Sundays, which is kind of a bummer.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the reason why I bring it up is because the Back to the Future, the original one, is well, it had a little bit of a controversy to it due to some of the implications of incest being involved between,
Mm.
and I didn't know if that factored into were your parents like, we're not going to watch that show, the mother is hot
No,
for the son, kind of a thing.
no, they didn't say that at all. In fact, I don't even know if my parents saw the movie. By that age, I'm 14. My brother would have been 21.
Yeah.
You go see movies with your friends. My parents weren't always going to see the same movies.
Right, right. Yeah, it's interesting because, and then we can delve into some of our favorite facts about the movies, favorite parts of the movies. But one of the most interesting facts about the movie is that the movie was not dirty enough for Columbia Pictures, but it was too dirty for Disney. And they originally went to Columbia Pictures, and Columbia wanted something because this was a teenage show. They just wanted something more like Porky's,
Huh.
or Hot Dog, or what's that? There's a slew of teenage kind of sex movies that came out during that time,
Yeah.
kind of a based basically on Porky's. There was one about surfing, and then there was one about skiing, and there was one about, I mean, I don't remember the names of these
There
ones.
were a ton of them.
Yeah. Well, they wanted something more like that. Columbia Pictures did. So when Robert Zemeckis pitched it, and then I forgot the other person who's a writer, George, can't remember, pitched it to Columbia, they were like, this isn't dirty enough. We want something more raunchy, something that teens are actually going to go see. And so they took it to Disney, and Disney was like, this is horrible. We can't do this. The mother has the hots for the son in the picture. And finally,
Who ultimately released it? It was Universal?
I think it was Universal. Yeah. Yep. ultimately released by
Yeah, I was thinking it was
Universal.
Universal, and of course it was a huge hit, right?
Yeah. I mean, I bet they're upset that they passed on that movie, both of those
Oh yeah,
studios.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, you think of Star Wars, and not to get off topic, but Lucas tried to pitch Star Wars to a bunch of studios, and a bunch of them passed on it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I know. It's crazy. You look back, I mean, how many movies did people pass on somebody else picked up and it was a complete dud too? It's always one
Oh
of those
yeah,
hindsights, but they're probably kicking themselves in the butt. So, what well, just, what were some of your favorite either scenes or facts about the movie or something like that? Stuff that you think it's important if we bring up a topic like Back to the Future, what do you think we should talk about?
yeah. You know what I loved in the Back to the original Back to the Future, which again I think it's superior to the sequels. If I have to stack rank them, I think I put the first one as the top, then the third one, Back to the Future Part 3,
Mm-hmm.
and then Back to the Future Part 2.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I loved in the first one. So Crispin Glover is in the first one,
Yeah.
and he's not in either of the sequels.
Right. Right.
And he's for being a kind of a quirky uh, kind of a guy. He's a fantastic actor.
Oh, he's a very serious actor.
Yeah,
Even
he is,
even when
and
he's
he
doing
was so
comedic.
good as Marty's dad, as Marty McFly's
Yes.
dad,
Yeah.
George McFly. And I love the relationship when Marty gets thrown back in time, and he's trying to build his dad's confidence, and he's trying to set to use a Star Trek phrase, the time continuum back on the right course. You
Yes.
know, it's awesome watching him try to build his dad up, or trying to scare his dad when he shows up as Darth Vader or whatever he says his name is, from Darth Vader from the planet Vulcan. You remember that
Oh
scene?
yeah, yeah. Of course, of course.
So
Uh,
awesome. So I really loved that relationship, and just watching that throughout the show.
but that was the year, right? It was cut short. And the emphasis of actually the inspiration for the movie was based on the fact that Robert Zemeckis one time was visiting his parents, and he had the idea. He was looking through an old photo album, according to him, and he had the idea, like he wondered, would he get along with his dad if he was the same age? Would his dad be even be somebody he would get along with? But as you said, it is cut short. They don't. Kristen Glover does not appear in part 2 or 3. And do you want to tell everybody why? Do you know why?
Why don't you tell everybody why?
Okay, all right. I'll tell everybody why. Well, there are two stories. There's, of course, you can, like Dr. Phil says, you can smash a pancake as flat as you want. There are still two sides. Uh, according to the writers, Kristen Glover, is that his name?
Crispin.
Crispin Glover. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
Crispin Glover.
Wanted as much money as Michael J. Fox.
Yeah, that's what I heard as a monetary dispute.
Yeah, and Crispin said that he did not like the fact that Marty was rewarded with financial gain and monetary stuff instead of love being his reward. And he said that in a recent interview, but I don't know which one's true.
So I'm not following that. You mean when he comes back in time, and
Yeah,
the family's more wealthy?
yes, yeah. He said he didn't like that. That was his reward
I
for.
don't buy that because, um, the dad George McFly in the future is more successful. And the whole family is just more successful. And so I don't really see the monetary reward other than the family's just a little bit more successful.
Yeah, yeah. I don't see that as being. Yeah, of course, if you're going to tell the story later, you're going to tell it in a way that favors yourself.
Sure.
Now, according, so this is one of those things where I think it's a little bit of both. But if you're telling a story later, you're going to say things, you're going to exclude things that may make you look bad and emphasize things that make you look good.
Yes.
And so for me, this is a little bit of both because, of course, I don't think these people were lying when they said Crispin Glover wanted as much money as Michael J. Fox, and they just said no. That seems to be true. But it is also a true fact that because of Crispin Glover, they downplayed the richness of the family. That originally the family, when Michael J. Fox comes back and they're more successful, even had servants, and Crispin kind of got his underwear in a ringer because
Yes.
of that, and so they downplayed that. So it's
Did they have
probably
servants? I remember Biff is working for him.
yeah, they had more. They actually had
Oh,
more, and they cut it. They cut it out. They cut it out
they
of the
cut it
script.
out. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, that was one of those things they cut out of the script as a result. And did you know about the lawsuit that ensued as a result of? Did you hear about that or no?
No, you're gonna have to tell me about
Okay,
that.
all right, I'll let you know. that so in the second one, there is a scene with George McFly, and he's hanging upside down.
Yeah, and
And
it's not Crispin Glover.
right, and Crispin Glover sued over that for using his likeness and set a new precedent in film. You can't use somebody's likeness.
Yeah, they just tried to find someone that looked like him, and of course, then you hang him upside down, and it's most people, unless you're really looking, you're not going to catch it.
Right, right.
But the guy that he played him even tried to sound like Crispin Glover a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. They really tried to make it look like Crispin Glover, and Crispin Glover sued and won. And that's I understand. I wish, from the last thing I heard, there's still contra. Nobody likes each other on that one, and it's looms over the franchise. But
Yeah, I can see that. And the first movie, obviously, Michael J. Fox was the biggest star coming in. Maybe Christopher Lloyd, the guy that played Doc Brown. He was, a bankable star from Taxi. But I think at the time, Michael J. Fox was so big.
yeah, for
And
sure.
so he should have, he's going to be the draw. Why would he not get a little bit larger paycheck?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
if you think about the show, the actors are all pretty top notch,
Hmm.
including the guy that plays Biff. That guy's great.
Yeah, he really is. He is good. Um, why do you rank the movies the way you're ranking them?
I do
Why?
because I think just for me, it's the quality of the overall script and
Mhm.
storyline.
Yeah. And
I think
what?
the first one just makes a lot more sense. And I thought in the second movie they tried to uh, add an attribute to the character of Marty McFly that kind of comes from out of nowhere. It didn't exist in the first movie, which is that when someone calls him chicken, that he can't back down from that.
That wasn't it wasn't that way in the first one in the original.
I don't recall anything about that in the first movie where someone calls him a chicken but they really started to play that up in the second movie, and they play it up a little bit in the third movie too.
Right. They kind of resolve it in the third movie.
Yes.
Um yeah, Crispin was written out of the second one entirely. That's why he's dead. And speaking of the third movie, um the how Michael J. Fox plays two roles in that one. That role
Yep.
was originally supposed to be for Crispin Glover. That
The dad or
yeah,
the no, like the
McShane.
great Seamus or something.
Yeah, yeah. Um, now has your opinion over the years changed on the ranking that you have of these movies? Did it change, or are the way you kind of feel about it now is the way you felt about them when they came out?
I think it's kind of the way I felt. Obviously, I saw the first one, loved it. Saw the second one, liked it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But then you just have those two to compare. But then the third one came out, and I like this one more than I liked two.
Hmm.
How would you rank them? How would you
Well,
rank the two?
it's because it's changed for me over the years. It's changed for me over the years. Uh, it's interesting. I'm a big middle movie fan. I liked Temple of Doom. I thought Temple of Doom was awesome. I thought it was way more action packed than the first one. The first one's a classic, but that second one, I mean, it's just action scene after action scene. About the only downtime was the ride was after they get off the plane and they're talking to the Indians there to get the skull back. Before that, it's action, 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 and then action all the way through the end, just action. And I loved that. And I kind of felt the same way about the second one. When it came out, that second one, when it came out, I would have been like 14, somewhere around there. Um, and maybe 15. And I liked it the best at the time. At that time when I watched it, the second one was my favorite. And the reason why is it's just more action packed. One thing kind
It's
of
true.
leads to the next. And I thought there was more tension around the paradox with him trying not to see himself. You know what I mean? Trying to
Yeah.
stay away from himself.
Yep.
But I got the DVD set for Christmas, and I went back and I rewatched them. And to me, the first one's my favorite because it's just a classic. I mean, it's just a great story. And the other two, I are on the same level for me. I don't really like the third one above the second one or the second one above the third one. Not that either of one of them are bad, but I don't. They're too even for me to.
Yeah, I can respect that. The third one does have ZZ Top in it.
Yes.
You know, and the Back to the Future movies had some good music in them. Now, let's talk a little
Yes.
bit about the first one with the cameo of Huey Lewis.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great cameo. Funny.
Yeah, it's funny, and he had well, there were I think two songs off of that movie. There might have been more, but two that were, The Power of Love. That was a
Hmm.
huge hit for Huey Lewis in the News, and I'm not sure it may have been on another album, but I know it was part of the soundtrack for the movie. And then there was a song called "Out of Time," I think, by Huey Lewis in the News too,
Yeah, I
or
think
"Back in
so.
Time." Back in Time.
Was there who did the soundtrack for the second one? I don't even remember if there was a good
I don't
soundtrack.
remember like a really powerful song from the second movie at all.
I don't either. I don't either. So were you a big Huey Lewis in the News fan in general?
I do like Huey Lewis. Yes, their
Yeah.
album "Sports" is fantastic. And they have a lot of hits if you think about it. I Want a New Drug.
Yeah.
Um, Man, Heart of Rock and Roll. They're just great. They're a great band. I think Huey Lewis is kind of down and he's not able to perform anymore due to some hearing problems.
Oh, that's a bummer.
Yeah,
It's a real bummer.
I
I
never saw them. I would have loved to see them live.
Yeah, I never was a Huey Lewis fan. I mean, I liked his hits, and there isn't anything I dislike that I hear, but I wasn't like a diehard fan. I wasn't. I didn't. I don't think I've heard a whole album of his. To my shame, of course, But you can't hear every album that's ever been put out.
That's right.
That's
You
all
should
there is
check
to
out
it.
Sports. It's a classic album.
Yeah, I remember Weird Al's parody of "I Want a New Drug." Do you remember that
That's
one?
right. I
I
want a new. What was it?
Spud.
I want a new Spud.
Yeah,
Yes.
it was like baked or fried or whatever. It
Yeah.
was like,
Weird Al is hilarious, by the way.
oh gosh, we could do I could do a whole episode on parodies on
Yeah. Yeah.
parody of the 80s and 70s,
And Weird
80s and
Al was the
90s.
master of parodies.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. For
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. So what I mean, when you think about, obviously those were amazing time travel movies, and they're probably some of the best. But there are a lot of time travel movies out there. I'm curious, what are some of your other favorites?
Time Bandits was a good one. I really liked that one. That was kind of one of those shows that kids were allowed to watch, but it was like real weird, you
Right.
know.
Yep.
Along with like Watership Down and Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. It's like you could watch them as a kid, but it give you nightmares, kind of weird, and you couldn't quite
And
figure it out.
Watership Down was a cartoon.
I know, and but that was one of those shows you were allowed to watch as a kid, and it's like I know I'm supposed to be enjoying this,
Yep.
but Time Bandits was pretty cool. A 90s one was Time Cop. A little cheesy, but me being into martial arts and into martial arts films, I liked it. I thought the story was fairly decent. What about which one's from you? What other time travel movies do you
Well,
like?
I do love time travel movies. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Oh gosh, how could I forget that? Yes.
How about that? When they go back and pick up Socrates or, Billy the Kid.
Yeah.
Uh, Abraham Lincoln. It's so funny.
Right.
Their travel through time. So that's one of my favorites. It's a comedy. It's it takes us. It's kind of lighthearted, but it's a lot of fun. I introduced that one to my 10-year-old girls recently, and they loved it.
Mm.
So it's just a fun show to watch. How about Terminator?
Ugh.
James
Well,
Cameron, where the guy comes from the past to try to kill
Sarah
the
Connor.
Sarah
Yeah.
Connor. Yeah, are you
Yeah.
Sarah Connor?
Yeah.
And then
I was not
kill her
allowed to.
so that stop the future.
Right. I had to watch that one on the sly. I had lots of
Yeah.
friends who had HBO and staying up over at their house overnight, And I had lots of friends with a lot of VHS tapes and stuff, and being able to watch a show like that. But at my house, I was not allowed to watch The Terminator. That was one of those more risque movies. There was obviously a sex scene in it.
Yep.
And what was interesting is I was allowed to watch it up to the sex scene, and then I had to go in the other room, and then I had to come back when it was over. The violence wasn't as big of a problem, but
Yeah,
it
it's
was.
okay if you see a million people get killed, but heaven forbid you see anybody having sex.
Yeah. Well, I get it. I mean,
I get it
if you
too.
have kids now, you can kind of understand. But I always, as a kid though, you think it's funny. You're like, well, I can watch all these people die, but I can't watch
I
people.
still think I like my dad. If when we were kids, if there was if a woman's breasts were on TV, or popped up, that was a reason to turn a movie off early on. Like if there was
Yeah.
topless scene.
Yeah.
But like you said, like we could watch a million war movies and see
Yeah.
people get blown up left and right, body parts flying all over. That was okay.
Hmm.
But heaven forbid you see a woman's breasts.
Yeah. Right. I think this makes everybody uncomfortable. You know what I
It
mean?
does, I guess.
So it's like,
Maybe,
okay, how does
maybe we have mixed up priorities though here in the
people
country. Because I think a
dying?
lot of people feel the same way.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, I think Terminator was great. The second Terminator was off the hook. Um, I don't know. First two Terminators are pretty good. Third one was okay, just okay. And then you start getting into anything after that. I'm like, I will watch it. I never even saw the Sarah Connor Chronicles. Did you
I
see any
didn't
of them?
either. The first two were the two I saw. And of course, I thought the first one was amazing. Second one was really good. And the special effects at the time were amazing.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
And you're right, Time Cop was really good with John Claude Van Damme, right?
Yeah, yeah, I liked it.
How
People,
about this time travel movie, Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home?
uh, interestingly enough, well, what are your thoughts on it? You tell me. What do you
Well,
like about it
they
first?
have to come back to
Yeah.
Earth. They have to do the loop around. I don't remember how they do it. A loop around the sun,
Uh huh.
something, and it flips them through time. They
Did
have to
you
come
like?
back to get the well, right? The
Yeah,
humpback
yeah,
whales.
yeah,
It was fun. It was a fun movie when it came out, and it was way different than any of the other Star Trek movies.
yeah,
It had more of a comedy. Had some comedy in it.
yeah. That was kind of funny. The double dumbass on you.
That's right. That's right. So
I was.
I like that. I'm a Star Trek fan. I like Star Trek.
So were you a Star Trek fan back when Star Trek came out? I mean, well, not when
I
it came out. It came out, but like when you were growing up, as you were growing up.
we watched it. My brother was a big Trekkie.
Mhm.
So we watched it. I wasn't as much of a diehard of the early Star Trek series. I loved The Next Generation. But I also liked the movies that came out. They came out years after the series ended.
Mhm.
And Star Trek, the first Star Trek movie, the motion picture, I thought was really boring. Did you ever see that one?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that one's kind of boring. But the sequel, The Wrath of Khan, and the third one's okay. But then the fourth,
Genesis.
yeah, I can't remember what the third one was. Yeah, Genesis. It was Genesis.
Yeah.
And then the fourth one, The Voyage Home, was just different. And it was funny, and it was a time travel movie.
Yeah, that's probably out of the first four, the one that I saw the most. I think I saw the motion picture once, the first one, and the Wrath of Khan once. And I had the same group of friends had Genesis on VHS, and then as a school, we got to see a movie once a year at the theater. And I was in middle school at the time or something like that. And, or maybe first year high school. And they took us all to see A Voyage Home. I have to admit, I was not a Star Trek fan. I am more of a Star Trek fan now. I can go back and watch them, and even the old ones, and appreciate them much more. But let's see. I was a Star Wars fan. I mean, if you had
There
Star
are
Wars,
those who think you can't be both, right?
right. But I wasn't not both, like, by tribe. I was just more into Star Wars. It's all that was, it wasn't like some war I was involved with Trekkies against Star Wars or something like that, or Star Wars against Trekkie. But the fourth one was good. I thought it was really good. I liked it. I mean, I didn't hate it, but I just thought, in my mind at the time, it didn't hold a candle to Star Wars. Like, not even close. It was not even a close, like, I had friends who were really into it, especially one of my best friends' older brother was really super into it. And I didn't hate it, but it just was almost like asking me, if to compare Star Wars to The Love Boat. It didn't, there's like no comparison. It's just like, well, I know they're both in space, but that's about where it ends for me.
They are very different.
Yeah. Now, The Next Generation, I'm on board because I was like 14, 15 when that came out, when Fox kind of aired that. And I was a big fan of Next Generation for sure.
Yeah, Next Generation was really good. I do think Star Trek 2, The Wrath of Khan, might be my favorite of all the Star Trek movies.
Yeah.
It's great.
It's really good. They did you know about the whole mess up on that show with Chekhov?
No, I didn't know about that.
Oh, okay.
Tell me that.
All right. Well, see, in the Star Trek series, Chekhov does not come, I believe, until the second season. So he's not in the first season at all. And so in the first season is where you meet Khan, and he wasn't on the Enterprise at all during the first season. But yet in the movie, Chekhov recognizes him. And so
interesting.
And so the actor who played him, knew that, but he didn't say a word because they thought, well, they would just switch him out and he would lose screen time, and he didn't want to.
yeah. Why would you? He's smarter than that. You don't want to lose screen time.
No, so he knew that. He knew it, but everybody else missed that little factoid or whatever. So yeah.
So I'll throw out a couple more time travel movies. Tell me what you think of these. Groundhog Day, where you just keep repeating the same day.
Wish it would happen to me. There'd be so much I would learn. You know what I mean? I really liked Groundhog's Day. I loved it. And there's even a video out there about like how long he would have stayed, like, how long they think he stayed. And there's some estimates up towards like 1,000 years that he stayed in there. But some of them are like maybe like 5 years, kind of trying to count how many times he would have stayed and guessing at it. Did you like Groundhog's Day?
I did. I'm a huge Bill Murray fan, so.
Yes.
I don't know if it really qualifies as a time travel movie, but it's definitely a time loop where you're just repeating that day over and over.
Yeah, for sure.
I'll throw one other one out that I've probably seen in the last 3 or 4 years. It's a newer edition, but it's called About Time. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
British movie by the guy that made like Love Actually.
Yeah, where he goes into a closet and
Yes.
I thought that had a great soundtrack on it.
It did, and it was kind of an emotional movie. Like when you realize, this guy inherits this trait from his dad, where he can go into the closet and just kind of close out the world and think about a time that he wants to go back to, and he can go back.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the dad tries to do that to fix some things, but ends up messing up the time continuum, right?
Hmm.
Like instead of having when he originally had a daughter, he comes back, he's no longer got the daughter, she's gone.
Hmm.
If I remember right, it's something like that. It changes.
Yeah.
When you come back, everything's different,
Yeah.
and that was to me a really good, well done movie.
Yeah. They're interesting things to think about. I like thinking about time travel. If you go back in time, what kind of mistakes would you try to prevent yourself from making? Those kind of things at least cross my mind frequently. I don't know if they cross your mind
Oh
frequently, but
yeah,
they
they do.
cross
Have
my
you
mind.
seen the movie The Butterfly Effect with Ashton
Oh
Kutcher?
yeah, 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 yeah. That's a great
That's
movie.
one where just he keeps trying to fix things, and whatever he does, changing slight things, when you go back, it's messed everything up too.
It creates more problems. It creates more problems, and that's kind of like what I think the second Back to the Future is.
Yeah,
That the second Back to the Future is just one of those things where it creates more problems.
yeah, because they
Um,
messed around with that sports almanac book.
yeah, yeah, and then they go back to 1985, and everything's messed up. Biff Tannen's all he goes to his own house, and
Right.
there's there's people there. It's not his
Yeah.
house; it's somebody else's
It just seems like
house.
the whole world's chaos.
Yeah, yeah, it just creates more problems. Uh, but it's always one of those things where you don't learn from your mistakes because I look at those things and I go, yeah, but if I went back in time, that wouldn't happen.
If you could go back in time, and maybe you don't feel like answering this, but if you could go back in time and choose any time in history to change something, what would you do? Have you ever thought of that?
Well, it, yeah, of course. I mean, but it's tough because there's personal stuff that I'd like to change, but there's also like world events, like 9/11 or something like that,
Right.
change that. Um, but apart from being, I don't know, magnanimous or something like that, apart from like, oh, not being a selfish turd, and and oh, you wouldn't go back and stop the JFK assassination, or you wouldn't go back and stop 9/11 or something like that. Aside from any tragedies like those, like personal stuff, um, are you talking about going back to any period in time,
Any period in time, yes.
like, and either change something or just like where I would like to
But if
live?
you could potentially change something,
Hmm. I don't know. That's a tough one. I think that what I would do is, personally, is I would go back. People say, oh, you go back and money was so much more expensive. Than I would probably go back, get a bunch of money, and I would bury it in my current backyard. And then when I came back to today, I'd go unbury it, and there'd be all these coins or all this cash there that's worth tons of money. I think that
right?
would be,
Silver coins, right?
yeah, well, anything really from, if I could go back to any era in American history at least, um, and then I could bury those coins or whatever, even Confederate money or something, and bury it in my backyard. That would be that would be amazing. But
That
I
would be really cool.
same question. I'd have to ask you the same question.
I've thought, it's the real estate thing. If I could go back in time, it's the same thing. It's being selfish.
Yeah,
But if I could go back in time, I'd go back even like 25 years from now, be back and buy real estate, buy some houses when they were cheaper, and
yeah,
then come back in time and reap the appreciation out of those.
right, right. Maybe buy some stock in Apple back in 1982 or something like
Oh,
that.
heck yeah. Buy some Google stock, Amazon.
Yeah, yeah, that would be interesting. One of the things that's interesting about Back to the Future, because it's about changing the past. Um, he was thrown back into a situation, and you think about it, where it's not like he had some choice. Like he's back there and he's just this casual observer, and he can look around and go, oh, I'm going to stop the JFK assassination or something like that. He's like, he has to fix a problem that he created with his parents, otherwise he's not going to live. You know what I
Yes.
mean? So with him, it's not a selfish endeavor. Well, it is because he would die, but
Yep.
I mean, that's pretty serious. He doesn't know that when he shoves his father out of the way, that he's going to create this whole time problem for him, where his very life is at stake if he doesn't fix this
Yeah.
problem.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of
So
the other, going Back to the Future is as you were talking about that, I was thinking about the pushing of the father out of the way. But there were some other changes between those sequels too, in regards to who played his girlfriend. Right, it was a different actress from the first movie to the second and third movie.
yeah, the second movie had Elizabeth Shue
Elizabeth Shue.
playing the girlfriend, but I don't know who it was originally.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, there were three Jennifers, actually, because as we all know, we can't even mention Back to the Future, the first one, without talking about Eric Stoltz. But
Oh yes.
Eric Stoltz, I'll loop back to that, but I want to get to this Jennifer thing for a second. Eric Stoltz, because of his character, had a different character playing Jennifer, but she was taller than Michael J. Fox. So when Michael J. Fox finally got the role, they got rid of that girl and then got the girl who was currently there. But for some reason, and I don't know what the reason is, she didn't come back for part two. And the story goes that they were not even going to make a part two. That's just that to be continued at the end was just kind of just a thing. They weren't really about making a part two. And so when they came back, they had to pick up where they left off, used a different actress, Elizabeth Shue, with a different hair, with that wig on.
Yep.
And then they knocked her out. So that she's not even in the second show. But if you look at the end of the first show, you think she's going to be part of the second show.
You do think she's going to be part of it. And she in the very first part of the second show a little bit? She is, right? Where they fly to the house.
Yes, yeah, but they knock her out. They give her a knockout thing or whatever, and they explain it like, well, she saw the DeLorean, so I couldn't just leave her there or something like that. But anyway.
She was a pretty talented actress at the time as well. She'd been in Karate Kid, right?
Oh yeah, that was a great show.
I'm surprised they didn't use her more than they did.
Yeah, they had to focus back in on the whole Marty and Doc relationship.
But you mentioned Eric Stoltz. It's very interesting, right?
Yeah. Well, go ahead. I mean, we need
because he was a big star. Well, he's a fairly big star, I guess, at the time too. He'd been in Mask.
Mm-hmm.
And probably not Some Kind of Wonderful. That might have been after.
That might have been after too. Yeah, I think it was after. But he was in a show with and these are things that I think I should look up before I get on the air and talk about it. He was in a show called Wild Thing with the same girl who plays Michael J. Fox's mother. I forgot her name now. The actress.
Yeah.
He was in that show with her. He's playing her boyfriend, her boyfriend in that show. But did you see any of the clips that are floating around?
I have seen a few of the clips, and it's interesting. From what I understand, they pretty much filmed the whole movie.
Yeah.
With Eric Stoltz and decided it didn't work.
Yeah.
And so they redid the whole thing with Michael J. Fox.
Yeah. There's dispute about actually how much was filmed with Eric Stoltz, but it was almost near completion. There's a few weeks of filming, so it was like almost near completion. And there are still rumors of scenes with him still in it, like some of the scenes where it's driving a car, like where you see the DeLorean driving.
Yeah,
that's supposedly Eric Stoltz in there still. You can't really see, and there's one scene where when he hits Biff, where in the malt shop, where in the cutaway they just used the old footage from Eric Stoltz, where that's actually Eric Stoltz's hand coming around to hit Biff Tannen.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I didn't know that either. And I do think Eric Stoltz is a good actor. So but obviously the movie is what it is because of Michael J. Fox, and
Yeah, well, I mean, they wanted Fox originally, but there was a conflict with his
he's
family
doing
ties
Family
stuff.
Ties, right?
Yep, yeah, and there was a conflict there. Um, but they worked it out, and Eric Stoltz. If you look at the scenes with Eric Stoltz in it, they're very good, but they're very serious. It's almost like what would you really do if you were back then? And Eric Stoltz is a very good, serious, dramatic actor.
Right.
And if you look at those scenes, you can watch them online. He's brilliant, but it's serious. And
Yeah.
I just don't think that they wanted that. They wanted the more goofy kind of thing, not the reality of what's going on, where Michael J. Fox is just such a great comedic actor
Oh yeah.
that that
Yeah. Michael J. Fox, and he filmed that at the same time as he was still doing Family Ties.
mm,
And then right around the same time, Teen Wolf came out as well.
yeah. Did you like Teen Wolf?
It was okay. It wasn't, it was not the same caliber of movie as Back to the Future.
Right, right. I heard that they had Teen Wolf all filmed, and I don't know if this is true or not. This is just what I heard, and I'm going off memory here. I didn't. This is something I looked up prior to getting on the air, but I heard that um, that they held off on Teen Wolf coming out until after, even though it was filmed first, until after Back to the Future came out to kind of ride the coattails
Oh,
of
that
Back.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Teen Wolf's not the same caliber movie.
No, it isn't.
It would have done okay at the theaters. It would have done
Oh,
okay,
yeah.
but it wouldn't have been the blockbuster that
Yeah.
Back to the Future was.
Right, right. I liked it. I mean, I was a little kid when it came out, so I liked it. It definitely gave me a little bit of an edge toward the vampire versus werewolf kind of thing. Definitely wanted to be a werewolf more than a vampire as a result of
Yeah.
that. Well, let's move to the third film, 1990. And a lot of people don't know this. Well, I don't know. Probably a lot of people do know this, but the part 2 and part 3 were filmed back to back.
Yes.
And I don't know if that was the first time it was done, but it was one of the first times it was done. They just filmed it back to back. Actually, they filmed it around the same time. They just edited the movie out differently.
Yep.
What did you think about the third film?
I like it. It was fun. It was a Western, it was different. It was different than the other two because it was a Western.
Mm-hmm.
So I really liked it.
What was it? Was there anything about it that you would have changed?
I don't know if there is. I thought it was a good way to finish off the trilogy.
Yeah, yeah. Now I have a real geek question for you. Did you know that there was a cartoon of Back to the Future in 1990?
I do remember that. Yes.
Did you see any of the episodes?
I don't think I ever watched any of those. In 1990, I would have been almost 20 years old.
Yeah.
I didn't really. I think I was doing other things and not watching as many cartoons at that point.
Yeah, yeah.
But I do remember seeing that it was out there.
Yeah.
They tried to. A lot of movies they would try to turn them into cartoons. There's a Beetlejuice cartoon I think that came out.
Yeah, there is actually.
I think there's a Napoleon Dynamite cartoon.
Uh-huh.
It's something that's popular. Hey, let's try to tweak it and make it for kids and put it into a cartoon.
As much money as they can squeeze out of it. Right.
Heck, they turned Pac-Man, the arcade game, into a cartoon. I think it was a Pac-Man cartoon.
In the 80s, that was a cartoon. I didn't watch it. I actually never even seen the show. Not one time. But speaking of cartoons based on time travel movies, can you guess another time travel movie that also had a cartoon? You mentioned it already. Did you?
Bill and Ted's?
Yes.
Yes, yeah. I do. I think I remember that.
Bill and Ted actually had 2 cartoons. two different, and they're drawn very different. One of them's kind of more roundy, kind of cartoon, and the other one's like very angular kind of
Okay.
cartoons. But yeah, there were two cartoons based on the Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Have you seen the most recent Bill and Ted's movie that came out last year?
Oh yeah, did you
I
see it
haven't
or
seen
no?
that yet. I need to see it.
It's fun. It's fun. It's I it's fun. You're not missing anything. If you never see it, you won't be kicking yourself. It's not like
Yeah.
if you had never seen Empire Strikes Back.
Right, right.
I would be like, you've never seen Empire. You gotta go. You gotta stop what you're doing. It's just like, yeah,
Yeah, it's fun. If you got nothing else to do, you're not going to hate watching it.
yeah. You're not gonna hate watching it. Well, talk about a great soundtrack. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure 2 had a
Bill and Ted's
phenomenal.
Bogus Journey.
Yes, that's right. Sorry. Had an excellent soundtrack.
It did. I had that soundtrack on CD.
Did it have Faith No More on there?
I think it did. It had Primus. I think it had a Primus song or two.
Were you a big Primus fan?
No, not really. I did like a few of their songs.
Yeah, yeah. It's hard to like, for me. It's hard to like bands that are a little too artistic, because it's just, I mean, yeah, I can respect the musicianship, but at the end of the day, you want to hear a good song. You don't want
Right.
to hear how artistic the person is. You want to hear a
Good
song.
harmony that you can sing along with.
Yeah, you want it to be catchy in some way.
Right.
It's like people who listen to Primus is like, I know, like, it's really good. He's an excellent bass player, but like, I couldn't even really repeat too many of their songs. It's not something
Yeah.
I catch myself
Tommy the
singing.
Cat is
Oh,
one
yeah.
I remember. Jerry was a race car driver.
Yeah, I remember that one too.
Those are the two I remember.
Yeah, that's it.
Maybe they didn't have a song called My Name is Mud.
Yep. Yeah, I remember that now too.
Yeah.
That was probably a little bit more catchy. My
Yep.
Name is Mud was a little bit more commercial friendly
Yeah.
than anything else.
But those are the only songs. But I know a lot of people that do love Primus.
Oh yeah. Tons of people love Primus. Um, but again, it's not my flavor of Primus. Just wasn't my flavor. Neither was Dream Theater. I don't know if you ever listened to Dream Theater or
No,
not.
I don't. I've never listened to them. I know who they are, but I've never listened to them.
I hate being negative. This show's not necessarily about being negative, but talk about great musicians, just horrible songwriting. I mean, really, it's all it comes down to. Is just like,
Yeah.
don't like any of the songs on there. But Faith No More, I believe, was on that soundtrack. I know that the guitarist was in the movie.
Oh, he was. Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think so. In Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey.
Can't remember the guitarist's name, but I think his first name's Jim.
Yeah.
But Faith No More is a great band. I actually really like Faith No More.
Yeah, me too.
They're I don't think it's their first album, but it's their first big hit album was Epic.
Yep. Yeah.
With the song Epic.
Yeah.
Which is just, it's a great song. And the whole album is actually really good.
Yeah. Talk about, soundtracks that come off of time travel movies. That's one of them right there.
Yeah.
Well, Epic. Yeah. Epic. Faith No More. Epic. The original, their first one with their first singer was not as, it wasn't bad. It just wasn't as good as Mike Patton.
Right. The singer's not quite as good, but they actually had the album's pretty good. That first album with We Care a Lot was one of the songs off of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a pretty good album.
You liked it.
I do. Yeah.
Yeah. I had this trick, and I'm embarrassed to admit it now, but if I didn't like a tape, and I got tapes. Did you get tapes, or did you get?
Oh, I had a ton of tapes. Yep.
Yeah. If I did not like a tape, I would cut it, take it back to the store,
and say it was damaged.
Yeah, and say I just got this, and it's cut, and that was bad. That was really a bad thing to.
Did it work?
Yeah, it did. It did. Look, I think I only did it twice.
Okay. I would think they would start to remember, hey, this guy always brings in tapes that are cut.
Yeah. Yeah, but I did do it on that first Faith No More tape. I loved Epic, and then when I found out that they had another album, they had another tape, I went and got that
Yeah.
tape, and I just didn't
Did you
care
give it
for
a
it.
fair try? Did you listen to it enough times?
Probably not. Probably not. I would probably appreciate it more now than
Yeah,
I
I actually think from you know, beginning to end, I actually think it's a better album than Epic. But
really.
I do.
Huh.
But I love Epic. Epic's got some great songs on it.
Yeah. Yeah, Epic was one of my favorites. One of those ones that got played in my auto reverse forward and back on my way to Mesquite or Vegas or whatever.
Yeah, but it's got the Iron Maiden cover, War
Yep.
Pigs.
Is that Iron Maiden or is that Black Sabbath?
Black Sabbath. I said Iron Maiden, meant Black Sabbath. Yes.
Yeah, that's got a good one. That's a great one. Um, what there was something else on the tip of my tongue about albums of that generation or genre, and it just slipped my mind.
Did you pick up the third? I think it might be the third Faith No More album, Angel Dust.
Uh-huh.
That's a
Yeah,
great album too.
I did like it. It wasn't as I it, see Epic was one of those tapes that I could listen to forward and back all the way through. I didn't hate any of the songs on there. Angel Dust was a little bit different for me. It was a little bit, a couple good songs in a song that I could live with or not live with, and then fast forward through that one and get to the next one and listen to a couple more. But I don't really remember that one as much as Epic. That would just really struck a chord with me at the time. And Epic came out at a time when music was starting to do that changeover from heavy metal being the genre of music that dominated the airwaves to alternative rock. And
Sure.
yeah, and some of those bands that were being played back then, like I'm sure I you could remember stuff like and really the direction I thought the decade was going to go until Nirvana hit was things like Jesus Jones,
Hmm.
and Ned's Atomic Dustbin. I don't know if you remember
EMF.
EMF. Yeah, EMF. Jesus Jones. I really thought that was going to be the music when I was listening to stuff. I thought that's what's going to be the big next flood
Sure.
of music coming in. But
And then Nirvana came around.
and then Nirvana came around and just changed the game. Nirvana a little bit more heavy
Yeah.
than EMF or
Oh yeah.
just more guitar driven punk rock, but kind of real catchy punk rock.
Yep.
Radio
Yeah.
friendly,
Absolutely.
radio friendly punk rock. But Huey Lewis
Exactly.
in the News to get us back to the Future. Huey Lewis in the News. Awesome. I never was a huge fan, but I haven't heard anything that I hated.
Yeah. To maybe wrap up the discussion, Back to the Future. It's an epic movie, right? And the
Yeah.
trilogy's epic if you think about it. Michael J. Fox just announced his retirement. It's from the entertainment business not too long ago. I think within the last couple months.
Oh, wow.
And it's been tough watching him over the years
Mm-hmm.
with his battle with Parkinson's. But man, that guy, he's an amazing guy.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Love his almost everything he's done. We could have had a Michael J. Fox movie talk, basically, is what we could have done too. And what's sad is that, of course, he's known for Teen Wolf and Back to the Future and things like that.
Doc
But
Hollywood.
but Doc Hollywood was great. But his '90s movies, I thought they were great. I thought Life with Mikey was really good. Was really
Yeah,
good.
and he did a movie with drawing a blank on the director's name of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. But what's his
Peter
name? Peter
Jackson.
Jackson. He did a movie with him called The Frighteners.
I haven't seen it.
Oh, it's so good.
Is it what it sounds a little horror-ish.
It's comedy horror. Kind of starts
Oh.
out as a comedy where Michael J. Fox plays a guy who's had some sort of accident or trauma in his life, and he can see and communicate with dead people, ghosts.
Okay.
And so he's got this little racket going on where he's got these three ghosts that he's recruited to help him out, and they'll go in and haunt a house, and then he'll go in, and people can kind of like Ghostbusters get him to come in and pay him to come get rid of the ghosts.
Oh, interesting.
So it starts out kind of as a comedy with him doing that at that little racket to con people out of money.
Yeah.
And it turns into a kind of fairly decent horror movie with there is a ghost of a serial killer from the past.
Oh.
It's out killing the actual ghosts.
Oh, wow. Yikes. I'll have to look into that.
It's Peter Jackson movie, which I know you like the Peter Jackson movies.
Oh, yeah.
And sure. Michael J. Fox.
Well, that's a combination you just can't beat.
Yeah.
All right, my friend. Thank you for joining me on the program. Let everybody know once again where they can find you, and I think maybe that's all you want to know. Not where they can find you physically, but where they can find you on the
out there in the interwebs.
Yes.
So we're on YouTube, and the name of my channel is Stephen Sundstrom, STEPHEN SUNDSTROM. We talk a lot of pop culture from the 70s, 80s, 90s, and even beyond sometimes.
Yeah. And I have a great idea for our next one. You and me are going to get together for another episode where we talk about albums that came out of movies, our like soundtracks, and we're going to rehash a lot of this stuff. But I think that was something I felt myself getting pulled on that track a little bit.
We should do it for sure. And I've got some favorite. There's some great soundtracks.
There's some really good ones, but I actually did want to talk about Back to the Future, and you and I are real close to the same age. You're only a couple years older than I am.
Yeah.
So, we're real the same age, and movies and stuff would have kind of impacted us the same way. And Back to the Future is just one of those movies that impact us. Thanks so much for being on the show. Hang with me
Absolutely.
For just a second.
Yep.
Hey, everyone. Thank you for watching Retro Serial or listening to Retro Serial. If you're listening to this on podcast form, please leave me an honest review and an honest star rating. Unless it's a 1, then don't. But if you have an honest review and it's favorable, I would love to hear it. Actually, anything is, bad press is good press. So whatever you want to say. But if you are listening to this and you like what we're talking about here, you're going to like what I'm doing over on my YouTube channel. I will leave a link in the description to my YouTube channel, because there are some things that I do on video that just don't transfer necessarily over to audio. I just released one, in fact, called 5 Facts You Didn't Know About Molly Ringwald. And that it's a short video, so it wouldn't transfer over to audio only. But if you like that kind of stuff, you're going to like what I'm doing over there. So head on over there, donate if you feel like you want to make all my wildest dreams come true, so that I can build this empire, this mogul empire. And if you're on YouTube, please subscribe. It means the world to me. Also hit the like button. Helps with the YouTube algorithms. Helps me get recommended on other pages. And share it on your favorite social media. Let everybody know about this great and wonderful content about growing up Generation X and all the nostalgia that you can taste with Retro Serial. And if you want to donate, again, the link below to buy me the coffee will be in the description. And we will talk to you again real soon. See you on another episode of Retro Serial.